So I started watching the conferences for that reason, to see how it was said, where it was said, and other stuff. And then now when I see those headlines, I can see, that's not exactly what he said, or that's what he said, but you just extracted the other part, or things like that.
No, obviously, there's a bigger problem of media bias than ever right now. I mean, even like the two that I used to like, that I used to go to, especially more financially related, that I considered much less biased, was Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. But the problem is that Bloomberg is very, very pro-China because they have a lot of business in China.
And he's biased too, obviously.
So they don't talk anything bad about China. So I don't trust Bloomberg on any article that relates to China. And then even on a lot of the stuff, Bloomberg is anti-Trump. Michael Bloomberg, I should say.
Right.
So they started being very anti-Trump. And that's fine. I mean, listen, Trump has done a lot of screwed up things as related to the coronavirus. So Bloomberg, it depends. I mean, I like Bloomberg for certain things. They're less biased than most, but they still have their biases. And the other one was the Wall Street Journal. But even the Journal now is like so like,
yeah,
they're talking about, it's like the market went up like a few percent last week, and they're like, it's a bull market rally, the bear market's over. It's like, guys,
well, I know.
Whose agenda are you going by right now? Because you're clearly trying to pump the market. It's like, what are we doing here?
And it's the same thing.
Unfortunately, those are the two that I used to like, that were pretty unbiased. They still have their biases. Like Wall Street Journal typically has been a little more right-leaning and Bloomberg a little left-leaning, but they're pretty centrist for the most part. And now they both seem to also be getting their biases.
That's the thing. I back in the days, you had like the
that's why I'll
PBS
say,
type news.
To finish, that's why I just read everything of all sides and then kind of form my own opinions. So I will read very left views, very right views, isn't
that sad that I mean, you expect, and this is not just politics, it's everything. Like somebody has a press conference and they say XYZ, and then just give me what he said. Don't give me your interpretation or the headline or put an adjective that wasn't there. I mean, it's just like it's a deeper conversation, because everything, all this media, whether it's the newspapers, which now they're online, obviously, or television channels or whatever, need viewers, need ratings, need advertising revenue.
It's also at fault of the viewers and the consumers of the content, because they're gonna make what people want, and people like to be in their bubbles and like to have that confirmation bias. So if I'm staunch Republican, then I'm gonna like watching Fox News because they're gonna say all the things I agree with. Just in the same way, if I'm a super liberal, I'm gonna watch MSNBC because they're gonna say all the things I agree with. And people like being in their bubbles. People don't like hearing opinions that disagree with theirs. And so that's why these networks do that. Because trust me, if people were saying, I'm not going to watch Fox News anymore, I'm not going to watch MSNBC anymore because they're too biased and their ratings started going down, they would change like that. But it's because it's the opposite, where when Fox was the first one. Fox was the first one that said, we're going to go full right. And then MSNBC decided we're going to go full left. But guess what? Those two started getting great ratings. And that's why they do it like that. And it's the same online with we're talking TV, but it happens with digital publishers too. They do it because at the end of the day, they're going to follow what the market says because they're businesses. And so it's the consumer that dictates their behavior. And the consumer is clearly telling them, hey, we like biased coverage.
But I understand before you had the news articles that relate what's happening in an unbiased form. And then you had the editorial articles written by authors or commentary, whatever, and they will have their opinion, which may be biased, but it's editorial. It was separate. In fact, even the font and other stuff in the newspapers was different. It was a column by that some guy or something. And then if you like the guy, you normally read the column. If you don't like him, then you have the counter opinion, which is the other guy on the opposite side. Now I just don't find a place where you say, like, I have Yahoo Finance or CNN or CNBC. I don't really know if we're better off now than yesterday or we're. I mean, you read a headline saying Mnuchin says that the economy, we should be able to reopen the economy by May, and then the other article says Trump is crazy, thinking that by the end of April everything will be back to normal, and then Fauci saying there's not going to be a back to normal ever. It's like, okay, where are we?
Well, I mean,
and
we're
then,
getting into a deeper thing. Is
Well, I know,
that is institutional trust.
But the thing is that that's why I said that I listened to Fauci, and he didn't say we're not going to go back to normal ever. Okay, he actually said that in terms of
What does that mean?
well, exactly. Like people, they struck that line, which he said, and he didn't mean back to normal in terms of our normal lives. He meant back to normal in terms of research and pandemic prevention and things like that. Okay, so when you listen to him saying, no, we're not gonna go back to normal ever. We're gonna have much more research, much more preparation, and we're gonna reinvent things, all that stuff, which was good. But when you extract a headline, people are like, oh, fuck, I'm going to be confined. I'm not going to be able to go to restaurants. We're never going to go in a stadium next to each other. No more handshakes, no more this. They extract that line because people are going to click on it. Clicking on it means that when you show your traffic reports and everything to advertisers, you say, okay, I have so many page views, click-through pages, average pages. All the stuff is so fake.
Yeah, but the problem too, though, is that even with paid outlets, like the ad supported outlets, it's been well known that they're just going to clickbait the hell out of everything because that's how they get their money. But even paid outlets still often have strong biases, even though they don't make money through clicks. They just get money through people renewing their subscriptions. But like, okay, the New York Times, for example, they obviously have a very left-leaning bias, and they've kept it that way, and they know their readership, right? There are not right-wingers subscribing to the New York Times, okay? They know who their audience is. And so even though they don't really, I mean, they do make money from ads, but, they're moving more and more towards subscriptions, and they make a ton of money through subscriptions now, online, I'm saying. They still haven't changed their bias at all, really. I mean, in fact, I think they've probably gotten even more biased over the past couple of years.
Right.
So it's not even just the ads that are at fault.
But that's the other thing. You mentioned the New York Times. I was just listening to another podcast the other day with Dan Crenshaw. He's a Republican congressman. So they were just talking about the New York Times headlines, which were actually documented when Trump actually closed travel from China. And that happened at the end of January. Okay, I think it was going from memory, I think it was the 29th, 30th, something like that, when Trump said we're basically blocking travelers from China, because that's when the coronavirus started happening, and it was in Wuhan and all that stuff, and he did that. And everybody was blaming, I'm not defending Trump, but in this case, everybody was blaming Trump because when we just came out, he was in the middle of the impeachment, by the way. We just came out of the negotiations with China, the trade deal, and he's going back and forth, and the New York Times had this headline saying, is it necessary to close trade with China? As you said, they're very favorable and all that stuff. And it's like, so they were blaming him because he did that, which in turn turned out to be a great move because according to other numbers, whether you believe it or not, that actually made the effects of the coronavirus in the U.S. about 90%, 95% less, I think, that there could have been if, I don't know, what 95% means, I don't know.
Who came with 95%?
Well, they said that the infection rate would have been higher much sooner, which it makes sense. I mean, if you block traveling from China from the Wuhan region, I mean, that's what happened actually in Italy and Iran, because they have specific delegations that were going back and forth. That's where those two countries were heavily hit right away, because they have all these Chinese people going back and forth between those two countries. So, but regardless, the point is that the headlines say that, and then the headline right after or a few weeks later is like, oh, Trump didn't act fast enough, and that's why we're in this situation right now, especially in New York and all that stuff. Okay, well, if he acted fast enough to close travel from China, which is the originating country for the coronavirus, and shortly after he did the same thing with the majority of European countries that were in trouble, except for the UK, and then like I think 2 days later he added the UK because the UK was adopting this herd immunity thing, and they said that's not going to work. So if he was erring on the side of being too cautious and blocking trade and blocking travelers and all that stuff, and people were blaming him for that, then they're blaming him because he didn't act fast enough. Well, that's one of the things that he did, and the same newspaper is blaming him for both, so you can't win, So, and this is not defending Trump or anything. It's just saying, give me something, It's like, if I'm the newspaper and say, is it necessary to block all travel from China? Well, I'm assuming that the president, with all his advisors, did it for a reason. It turned out to be a good reason. Who knows what would have happened if we had travelers from China coming here from January freely and moving all over the country? I'm sure it would have been worse. Definitely no better or no different, as far as being better. So if you said that, if you're a true journalist, you will have said, in retrospect, it was probably a good move that he did that. Forget your political affiliation. Just say, okay, well, that was good.